Hello, everyone. Now, as you know, Michael Jordan fans are the worst NBA fans, and one of the many reasons why is that these people always accuse NBA legends of stat padding. So let me tell you how this works. Whenever there is an NBA legend who has statistics that are just as good as Michael Jordan's or better than Michael Jordan's, they chalk it up to stat padding. So I'm going to explain to you why this is ridiculous. Here are the reasons in no particular order. First, when a Michael Jordan fan says that someone stat padded all of their statistics, that means that all the statistics were stat padded. And that is silly to assume that every statistic is stat padded. There are so many statistics that it doesn't make sense to assume that every statistic was stat padded. Second, now some Michael Jordan fans will say, well, we didn't mean all of them. We meant some of them or one of them. But either way, that still doesn't make any sense. If they meant some of them, it doesn't make sense to assume that some of them were all stat padded. If they meant one of them, it doesn't make any sense to assume that one of them was all stat padded. Third, stat padding is usually something that hurts a team, so it doesn't make sense to assume that all the statistics were stat padded, because then that means that all the statistics hurt the teams. Fourth, a player can't stat pad every statistic for many different reasons. For example, a player can't stat pad every statistic if the coach won't put him in the game. Another example, a player can't stat pad every statistic if he can't get the ball. Another example, a player can't stat pad every statistic if his teammates won't give him the ball. And there are more examples, but you get the point. Fifth, some of the players that they accuse of stat padding played in a time where they didn't know all their statistics in a game. So if they don't know all their statistics in a game, they are less likely to stat pad. Sixth, now sure, if a player played in a time where they didn't know all their statistics in a game, they can still try to stat pad. They can try to figure out what their statistics are, and they can try to keep track of them. But those things would be hard to do. And if a player did those things and was able to stat pad, you might want to give them some credit for stat padding. Seventh, if an NBA legend was stat padding over and over, lots of people wouldn't allow it. The owners wouldn't allow it. The general manager wouldn't allow it. The coach wouldn't allow it. The player's teammates wouldn't allow it. Some of the fans wouldn't support the player because he kept stat padding. The opponents wouldn't let the player just keep stat padding. And the NBA would probably get involved if a player kept stat padding. Eighth, if a player was stat padding over and over, Michael Jordan fans should be pointing the finger at lots of other people. They should be questioning the owner for allowing it to happen. They should be questioning the general manager for allowing it to happen. They should be questioning the coach for allowing it to happen. They should be questioning the player's teammates for allowing it to happen. They should be questioning some of the fans for supporting the player even though he kept stat padding. They should be questioning the opponents for letting the player stat pad over and over, or for not being able to stop the player from stat padding over and over. And they should be questioning the NBA for allowing it to happen over and over. Ninth, sometimes lots of the people actually support a player for stat padding. Sometimes the owner supports it. Sometimes the general manager supports it. Sometimes the coach supports it. Sometimes the teammates support it. Sometimes some of the fans support it. Sometimes some opponents support it. And sometimes the NBA supports it. 10th, when Michael Jordan fans accuse a player of stat padding, not everyone would agree with them. Not every owner would agree. Not every general manager would agree. Not every coach would agree. Not every teammate would agree. Not every fan would agree. Not every opponent would agree. And not everyone in the NBA would agree. 11th, if a player was stat padding over and over, then lots of people who vote for a player wouldn't vote for him. For example, they wouldn't vote for him for player of the game. Another example, they wouldn't vote for him for rookie of the year. Another example, they wouldn't vote for him to be the NBA's regular season MVP. And there are more examples, but you get the point. 12th, Michael Jordan fans have contradicted themselves. If lots of players stat padded, then that means lots of statistics, records, awards, and other things like that are not reliable, and yet Michael Jordan fans go by these things. 13th, Michael Jordan fans have another contradiction. They like analytics. Well, analytics is partly relying on statistics, but if a player is stat padding over and over, then that means the statistics are not reliable. And so if the statistics are not reliable, then that means that the analytics are not reliable. 14th, if a player was stat padding over and over, then they would probably put an asterisk next to any statistic, record, award, or anything like that that they think the player should have because the player is stat padded. 15th, usually when a player is stat padding, they do it at a time where it won't really affect the team in a negative way. 16th, Michael Jordan fans act like statistics is this separate thing. It is what a player does and how well he does it. 17th, if a player stat pads over and over and he has great career numbers, then at what point do you think that stat padding is normal? 18th, if a player stat pads over and over and he has great career numbers, then at what point do you think that stat padding is good? 19th, if a player is putting up really good numbers, that is hard to do, so even if they are stat padding, who cares? For example, if someone plays 48 minutes a game and is stat padding, they are still playing 48 minutes a game. Another example, if someone scores 34 points and is stat padding, they are still scoring 34 points. Another example, if someone gets 20 rebounds and they are stat padding, they are still getting 20 rebounds. And there are more examples, but you get the point. 20th, when you have lots of nice statistics, that's actually good for your team. If a guy is playing lots of minutes, scoring lots of points, getting lots of rebounds, and I could give you more examples, but you get the point, that is actually good for your team. 21st, when you have nice statistics, that is actually good for you. It can get you more money, more fame, give you more job security, and there are more examples, but you get the point. 22nd, if Michael Jordan fans were in the NBA, they would also be stat padding. 23rd, now some Michael Jordan fans will explain that they don't think the player stat padded for their whole career, and that not every statistic was stat padded, that it just happened at some point in a game, and it happened a lot. So how do they know? How do they know who stat padded, and how do they know how many times a player stat padded? 24th, Michael Jordan fans were not there for every NBA legend, or for every game an NBA legend was in, or for every minute of each game. They also don't have tape of every NBA legend, and they don't have tape of every game that every NBA legend was in, and they don't have every minute of every game that every NBA legend was in. So how do they know who stat padded, and how do they know how many times a player stat padded? 25th. Now, one of the reasons Michael Jordan fans accuse some players of stat padding is because they claim the players cared about having nice statistics and that the player paid attention to his statistics. Well, there is nothing wrong with the player doing these things, and those things do not prove that a player stat padded. 26th. Lots of players cared about having nice statistics, and lots of players paid attention to their statistics. 27th, Michael Jordan cared about having nice statistics, and Michael Jordan paid attention to his statistics. 28th, every NBA legend has stat padded. 29th, Michael Jordan has stat padded. 30th, now some Michael Jordan fans will go off of one guy or a few guys who accuse someone of stat padding. These things are not proof that a player stat padded, and there could be a million reasons why someone or why some people accused a player of stat padding. 31st, when it comes to all the players that Michael Jordan fans accuse of always stat padding, there is no proof that all those players always stat padded. That's it. Now, if you pick Michael Jordan as the #1 NBA player of all time, you can go on my podcast and or my live stream and show your facts that Michael Jordan is the #1 NBA player of all time. If you would like to go on, send me an email. The email is in the description section. Thank you.